Hello friends, welcome. Friends, yesterday CCI rejected the request by the app providers to grant them an interim relief. Now friends, I have been following this Google case very closely in India. And in this video, what I am planning to do is give you a complete perspective. You know, what is going on in India, what is going on in Europe, and what is going on in US. How the Indian investigation, as far as Google is concerned, is getting steered in a different direction from what is happening in US and Europe. So by looking at this video, by listening to this video, you will be able to get the real perspective as to what the key issues are and where the remedial measures are in order to somehow give relief to the concerns of the app developers. Because the reality of the case is what? The app developers, the Indian app developers are complaining about the misuse of dominance by Google, and they want the Google to treat them fairly as far as the service charges, as far as their presence in Google Play Store is concerned, right? Because they are being hosted in Google Play Store and they are being charged a commission on behalf of Google in order for Google to supply them with an access to the Play Store so that they can distribute their apps and can compensate it from the users on account of that action, right? That's the whole issue. So let's go step by step and understand what are the issues, because you need to closely watch this video, because I've taken a lot of pain in order to accumulate the data from different places, and I will put this data in front of you. So you have to observe and listen to this video very carefully to understand the issue. Now let's talk about the yesterday's order first. Now in yesterday's order, the informant means the app developers, requested an interim relief from CCI, because they said that yes, the investigation is pending, but we will like CCI to intervene and grant us an interim relief in form of injunction to prevent Google to charge their so-called excessive service charges till the time the investigation is complete. That's the whole point about the prayer. Right? So I'm going to show you the prayer, the details of the prayer, but let's understand an overview as to what happened and what was the background of the CCI's current order, means the dismissal of the plea or the request of remedies or the prayer of the informant yesterday by passing an order that they have rejected it and saying that they were not going to grant an interim relief to the app providers against Google. So what app provider did? The app provider basically requested CCI requested and invoke section 33 of the Competition Act, where CCI has the authority to grant interim order. You don't have to understand these clauses. These clauses I am referring from the point of view of other users or other viewers who are more informed about the Competition Act. By the way, this video is not directed towards those learned individuals. These are basically directed towards those people who do not have any understanding about competition law. They only understand the logic about fairness. That's where I am going to lead this video towards, rather than getting lost in technical jargons, right? But still, there is a need to give you some references about the Act, because CCI has got the power to act under Section 33 if they feel that there is need to pass an interim order, that you should know. Then we have got Section 19A. CCI, under this section of the Competition Act, CCI has power to investigate violation of section under Section 3.1 and Section 3.4, which is basically misuse of dominance. So I don't want to get into the details of this section, because it is going to we'll get lost into this if we go to the details. Then what happened was, the core grievances of the app providers was the revision of Google's payment policy, and they believe that these revisions which Google brought around under the in their payment policy, because of the earlier order of CCI, in 2022, in October 2022, where CCI found that Google is under violation of Section 4 of the Competition Act, which is nothing but it was being branded as a dominant player, and CCI was able to establish that Google abused its dominant position, and therefore they gave some remedy. And under those remedy, Google was obligated to implement this revised payment policy. And this payment policy which Google implemented, the app providers assert, is not in alignment with what CCI earlier order was, and therefore they had requested for a investigation into whether Google has actually implemented the CCI order in completion, and that investigation is currently running in parallel. And before that investigation has been completed, there were certain allegations and complaints which the app provider had made even before this relief was granted, and under those complaint, which was basically of the violation of the payment policy of Google, that is, the Google is charging unreasonable fees, CCI already has passed an order in 15th of March 2024 for the DG investigation, where they found that Google actually violated Section 4 of the Competition Act, and they order an investigation of by the DG, the Director General, to be completed within 60 days. Now, you might, as a viewer, you might find all this pretty confusing. If I was watching this from side, I would also consider this very confusing. So let me just summarize, the sequence of event for the sake of clear understanding. See what happened in layman language, that Google was being investigated for a long period of time, and CCI issued order against Google in October 2022. There were two orders which were issued, and under those orders, certain remedies were being placed in these orders, which for Google to implement. Right? So that's the situation, and CCI found Google under violation of Section 4 of the Competition Commission Act and abuse. Now the app providers, the Indian app providers, saying that Google has not fully implemented those orders. They are not in pure implementation of the order in spirit, because they consider that the service charges which Google is charging for them to be in the Play Store is excessively high, and they haven't got any relief from those service charges, which was earlier 15% to 30%, now has been reduced to 11% to 26%, because third party billing has been allowed by Google, which was earlier not allowed, and in lieu of that, Google has given a discount of 4%. So if an app provider wants to do a third party billing instead of going through the Play Store billing, what they have to do? They actually have to pay Google 11% to 26% service charges, because depending upon what their criteria is from a revenue point of view, what they are generating, and on top of it, they have to pay third party biller a additional service charge, which may be to the tune of 3 to 4%. So what they are saying is that we haven't got any relief. Okay. Now, what happened was that since this was the allegation that they haven't got any relief from the point of view of higher service charges, therefore they consider the CCI action of 2022 as completely defunct, haven't got any relief, right? Therefore, what happened was that they filed a complaint to CCI under section, I think around section 44 or 45, under which they basically requested for investigating Google whether they actually have complied with the earlier CCI order in completion, whether there is any violation or not, right? So that investigation is going on in parallel. Now, as the investigation is going on in parallel, they filed another complaint, right, to CCI saying that their billing policy is a violative of section 4 of the Indian Competition Act, and therefore should be investigated, which CCI already did in 2022 when they passed the order in October 2022. So CCI now is revisiting the anti-competitive behavior of Google, which they investigated, filed remedies, order for remedies, and issued a fine on Google. Got it? So this is the situation. Now, because they have complained, the app providers have complained again, CCI on March 15, 2024 did a prima facie order where they found Google violative of their dominant position, means they have abused their dominance, and their fee structure which they are charging to the app providers needed to be investigated. Now the point is that they already had investigated the violation of Google under section 4 in year 22. Now they are revisiting their case, which means that their investigation which they did in year 22 either was incomplete, or there are certain new violation which Google has done, right, and which Google has done, which falls under the section 4 of the Indian Competition Act. Only two things can happen, right? So as you go through this presentation, you will understand that it is not that that Google has actually created some new violation. Actually, the investigation which they did in year 22 and the order that they passed was incomplete in nature, right? And you will also understand that the direction of investigation under this order of March 15, 2024 actually steering CCI in a territory which they cannot be able to issue any remedy. And I will tell you why they won't be able to issue any remedy, because the direction which CCI is heading in their March 15, 2024 order is going into deciding what the service charges would be, because they are now questioning the justification or the fairness of the charges that Google is charging from the app provider, rather than going into the details as to how to make the app store market more competitive. Because if you go globally, and if you look at UDMA Act as well as the Apple versus Epic Game case, nobody is investigating the app provider's service charges from the point of view whether those service charges are fair or justified or not. What they are doing is they are trying to make the market more competitive, so that with an assumption that as the market forces play, then these app providers are going to be forced to make their service charges competitive in line with those market forces. Okay, you understand now what the problem is. Now in parallel, there was another petition which was filed in the interim, which came yesterday as CCI's order, the 20th order, March 20th order, where CCI said that I am not going to grant any injunction against Google because your case is not adequate enough. You have not justified your case for seeking an injunction. And since there is already an investigation going on, which I have already ordered on 15th of March 2024, which DDGG is going to complete within 16 days, it is not fair for me to issue an injunction. Okay. Now that is what CCI has said. I believe that CCI did the right thing from the point of view of passing an interim order and did not give any injunction, and I'll tell you the reason why they did the right thing. But what they did not do right was the prima facie order of 15th of March 2024, and I'll take you through the reasons why I believe that they actually did not follow the right approach, what should be followed by a competition regulator. Okay, so let's go into the details. I have done a very deep overview, which is actually more than what was required because time is going to elapse in this video. So let's do a little bit of deep dive. So what CCI has done, so I'll go very, very fast to understand why they have rejected the informant case. They are saying that as per the Supreme Court guidelines, which is CCI versus Steel Authority of India, the case of 9th of September 2010, to issue a interim order, it can be done only under exceptional circumstances, and it will require a detailed reasoning rather than a simple prima facie case. it is going to require a reasoning more than the prima facie case. And the complainant has to demonstrate irreparable and irretrievable damages and harm to the party through their respective business. And CCI believes that they have not been able to do that. So if you look at these highlighted words, right, in this slide. So they are saying that there is no reason to grant any relief because informant has failed to present a compelling prima facie case, and they have failed to conclude that if the injunction is not granted, their business is going to be harmed and cannot be, and even any monetary compensation could not rectify that harm, right? And Google counter was that whatever that these informants were seeking, if you go to the case here, you will find that the complainants basically wanted everything to be given free. Like, look at this statement. Direct Google should not mandate the sharing of any financial information or payment of transaction related data. Prohibit Google from levying any fee and commission. Right? Direct Google to keep in abeyance in policy for mandating any guidelines including UX. That means their payment policies guidelines should not be implemented on me. Direct Google not to delist or hamper my visibility in the App Store in case if I do not comply. Which basically meant that Google basically told CCI that, look, if I have to comply to this order, then I am giving my services of the Play Store free to the developers without charging any money, which is not correct because these app providers are in turn charging money from the customers. So why should I be deprived of the financial benefit when you are not preventing the app providers to charge money from their customers? So that was the logic, right, which Google used. And CCI understood it, and therefore CCI did not give any kind of relief, right? Now let's go to the issue about the issues in CCI's prima facie case against Google. Now, so what I basically say, when I went through the prima facie case against Google, I found lot of holes. This is the case on 15th of March, which is the CCI has requested or directed the DG to complete within 60 days. Now the economic arguments which CCI has used to direct a case against Google to investigate the fairness of service charges, I believe the economic arguments are completely wrong. Let me explain what I basically believe why I'm saying so. One of the point about reference, if you look at the prima facie order, it is saying that Google's internal assessment suggests that they need only 6% revenue share for a sufficient break-even for running the App Store. Now, the usage of the word break-even means what? The use of the word break-even means that they are net zero. So whatever cost that they are incurring for running their app is going to get replenished by the service charges of 6% revenue share that they can recover from the app providers who are using the Play Store or their OS system. Now the point here is that is not the point about the value that any investor is wanting to extract from a point of view of investment. If I want to if I am making an investment into a venture, my intent is not to recover cost, but to make return, right? Google is maybe running the App Store and might have employed engineers to help with the maintenance of the App Store and do kind of service upgrades, but it wrote so many millions of lines of code to give access to API to the developers so that those services which Google is offering or the core services which Google is able to extract from the processors can be made access to the app developer without them writing any code. So that investment which Google has done in the Android system for a period of time, maybe years, maybe 3-4 years with hundreds of engineers and billions of dollars that they might have spent, what about the return of investment for that kind of money that Google has spent? That does not get recovered by the word break even, right? That is point number one. The second point is that if you look at the prima facie order of CCI, they are saying that Google has said that their ability to charge or their benchmark rate of service charges is not driven by how much cost that they have incurred or how much money that they have invested. It is basically compared to the Apple's fee structure, their main competitor in the App Store space. Now CCI is saying that this probably is not the right way of pricing your service. Let me make an example. Let's say you as a consumer purchase a property of 1 crore of rupees, right? You invested, right? And then the property prices goes down and your 1 crore property becomes 80 lakhs. Okay. Now you go into the market to sell the property. Will you be able to sell the property at 1 crore of rupees and you basically tell your buyer that, look, I have invested 1 crore of rupees, please give me 10% return, so please give me 1.1 crores for this property? You will only get 80 lakhs plus the profit that you want to make, the return on investment, because that's the market price. So the market price has got nothing to do with what investment that you have made and what is your cost of maintaining the app store. It is driven by the competitive dynamics of the market and what the competitor is able to charge in a similar situation. So by making a statement that there is Google has made a comparison with Apple fee structure and has got they have not been able to benchmark their pricing structure based on the investment that they're making is not an economic argument. And I did not expect CCI to make such a very thin or a very weak argument, in order to justify a prima facie case. This is absolutely wrong from my point of view. So anyway, so this is in nutshell, and then there are certain remedies which they had proposed earlier were ambiguous, which I don't want to go into this particular case because these are the primary arguments which I have made, which you should understand. As for their earlier order being vague, etc., you can read my note. I am going to put that in the description. You will understand, right? So what CCI then should do now? Because if CCI cannot investigate the service charges of Google, whether it is fair or not, because it's driven by competitive forces, only option CCI has to make the market competitive. That's all. Their focus should be to ensure that the app providers who are basically using Google services have the flexibility and the leverage to work in a competitive market so that Google doesn't have the capability to charge unreasonable amount of service fees, which the app providers are complaining, where the main direction of investigation should be, where the remedy should be focused on. How can they do that? They can do that by creating an alternate marketplace for distribution and discovery of app, like the UDMA has done. I have written an article on this particular issue. I'm going to put a link in the description so that you can read, right? And because there will be competitive app store running parallel to Google's Google Store, Play Store, similarly, CCI should investigate Apple also. They can't investigate Google in isolation because any service fee structure which they set for Google in isolation is going to disturb the competitive dynamics of the market forever. Because in India, Google may be dominant player as far as the App Store market is concerned, but there will be a spillover impact of India's decision as far as service charges are concerned for Google internationally in US and other markets where Apple is a dominant player, or Google and Apple are at par as far as the App Store market charges are concerned, or the App Store's the market access is concerned, right? So given that situation, if you do not balance the dynamics of the market as far as service fee is concerned, you will not be able to do justice. And therefore, in my view, CCI should not be focusing on service charges. It should be focusing on making the market more competitive, right? So this is where the issue is. Now, how do you make the market more competitive? For that, I have drawn this diagram. Now, if you look at, I have created a rectangle which I am branding as mobile operating system. Now, in this mobile operating system, what the operating system does? operating system will offer certain core OS services, which you can see by this rectangle, by this box, which actually in front of you, right? So the cylindrical box. Now these core services are access to processing of information, GPS services, right? And various subroutine. For example, I have to add two numbers, 2 plus 2, make it 4, or mathematical operations. Those are features which are being delivered through the core services, right? From the OS or from the OS. Now, all these core services that you will be able to access should be made available by any OS player, whether it is Google or Apple, irrespective of whether you are using their own Play Store or using a third-party Play Store. So CCI's main focus should be to enable a third-party Play Store in a manner that the third-party Play Store, so that there is a balance of competitiveness of the market. Means I as an app provider can host my app either in Google Play Store or in third-party Play Store, right? Which the UDMA has done, right? And then if I am in Google Play Store, then I should have the capability to access the third-party billing system. Now, if I am in Google Play Store, then Google has the capability to charge me any service charges that they deem fit. Now, if I am in a third-party Play Store, which is basically side loading of apps, then Google should not have the capability to charge same service charges which they are charging for being in Google Play Store. They may charge some nominal charges as a technology charge, which Apple is charging in case of Due, in order to maintain and develop the core OS platform. Those they can charge, but they should not be charging the same 30% or 15% or whatever charges that they have for their App Store. So that is where the main focus should be, that how to create an alternative marketplace in the OS system, both for Apple as well as Google, which, by the way, the EU DMA has tried to do. Now, whether it will be successful or not, we have to see. But if you go to US, and you will find that, let me just tell you what is going on. In US, what happened was that on September 2021, the trial court issued an order against Apple because of so-called the Epic game, the famous Epic game case, saying that the Apple blocking the Epic games, which are basically in Apple stores, to able to advertise or use the third-party billing system is in anti-competitive, and they should not be doing that. And they passed an order on September 21st. And now what has happened is that order that they implemented, what Apple has implemented to able to remedy the direction in alignment with the course direction, that order has got lot of restrictions. So in US, there is no provision of a third-party app store as EU has enabled. The fight that is going on in the US court is ability for a app provider to advertise outside the app store for a cheaper option, or try to create a discovery system which is different from the Apple's app store. Now, there are a lot of barriers, and even if you look at the Meta and Microsoft submission, which they made, where is it? Just a minute. So this is the submission which they made yesterday, and they are saying, and the nutshell what they are saying, I have extracted this in my PowerPoint, and I'll show you what they're saying. They're saying that this is where it is. They're the Microsoft and Facebook submission against the remedy which Apple has proposed because of the Epic Games September 21 judgment. They're saying that none of these remedies are actually in true spirit of the court order. Why? They're saying that first, the external link entitlement process is layered with so many requirements. Means the court said that you should allow external links, so that an app provider, if he gives an external link to their app user can click that link and go to an external website, either make payment or get advertised over a cheaper option. So they're saying the external link entitlement process in layer with so many requirements and dictates how the developers may communicate pricing information to such a degree that it neuters developers' ability to present an alternative payment option, saying that it is completely useless what Apple has offered. Second, purchase that take place on developer's website within 7 days after the consumer clicks the external link remains subject to 27% or 12% for qualifying purchase commission. Same thing which the Indian app providers are saying, that even if I make a third party billing system, Google is charging 11% to 26%, where Apple is charging 12% to 27%, right? And third, Apple plan unnecessarily requires the external link sent user to app developer's website to complete the transaction, preventing the developer from employing an alternative payment option outside the developer's own website. Now imagine, the US situation is far worse. India is much better because India actually has forced Google to come out with a third party payment option in true sense, right? Here, what Apple is doing, instead of taking them to third party website, they are taking them to their website. So, and UDMA probably is the best. I don't know whether it will be effective or not. So you need to understand that none of the markets, whether US or Europe, they are talking about regulating the service charges. Everybody is talking about regulating and making the market more competitive. In my sense, to make the market more competitive, CCI should be focusing on only enabling the provisions of the regulation which prevents Google or Apple to host a third-party app store in their OS system. And that third-party app store should have a unbiased, fully empowered capability to access the API so that they can get access to the OS core services. If you don't get access to OS core services, then there is no point being in the third-party app store. And the Google and Apple, they should not be allowed to charge the same service charges if an app developer wishes to be in their Play Store from the point of view of ease of discovery and other seamlessness which the Play Store offers or the App Store offers. And if they are choosing a third-party billing system, then the third-party billing system should be allowed, in an unflexible and in a much more empowered and fully flexible manner, and that should be, with a service charges which will be lower, right, compared to what they will be charging as far as the Google Play Store is concerned. And the most important thing is about the discovery, because if I as an app provider cannot inform my user about the availability of a cheaper option when I am in App Store or the Google Play Store, then I will not be able to sell my app. So there has to be a proper discovery system enabled by advertising within the app and enabling a link so that that link can be exercised to cause a separate discovery of the app in a different dimension, so that from there the app can be discovered, downloaded in the operating system, right? As simple as that. And the most important part is these regulations has to be anchored for all providers rather than being talked about vertically singled out for a separate app providers and leaving the other OS. Let me just take my step back. These regulation has to be anchored for all OS providers, not app providers, rather than singling out a single OS providers and forcing the remedies on the throat of that same OS provider. If you have to implement a regulation, then the new digital act which is coming, invoke that so that all providers, irrespective of whether it is Apple, Google or anybody who actually are anchoring a digital marketplace, should ensure that their digital marketplace is fair and it is enabling alternate marketplace within their digital platform to enable competition. Once competition is enabled, then only we will be able to ensure that the pricing of service charges which the OS providers are charging from the app providers are reasonable and governed by the true market forces, because the market has now become competitive. Rather than getting into nitty-gritties whether their service charges is better or not, whether they are making more cost or not, those things do not matter, because this is a noise and digression. And therefore I believe that the CCI investigation, if it results in any outcome about the Google service charges are unreasonable, would be a wrong outcome, and probably will be turned down by courts, because that will not have the basis, because ultimately as a role of a competition regulator is to make the market more competitive rather than getting into pricing. Okay, so in nutshell, let me close by this, because I have gone much beyond than what I should be, but I hope that I have just done justice to this video, and let me know if you have anything to talk about as we move forward, and I will just see you later in the next video. Thank you very much.